Okay, that was Anton Karas' theme song from The Third Man, which has been my theme song for the last 6 years. I'm Randy Credico. This is Randy Credico Live on the Fly here on both 99.5 FM in New York City and the Progressive Radio Network, also out of New York City. We have a great show today, folks. Really, I'm very excited about this show. We have Marianne Williamson and Katie Halper. They have this great event coming up tomorrow night. I'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to make one announcement. On the Sunday, the 27th, there will be the return of stand-ups for Assange, a night of comedy, music, and commentary at the Tabard Inn. There it is, at the Tabard Inn. And two of the guests, our two guests today, will be there, one by remote, one in person. Also, we got Lee Camp there. We have Jaffer Khan. We got like 13 people and a great jazz musician player. So that's at the Tabard Inn. If you want to get tickets, there's only a handful of tickets left, and the room is very small. You go to assangecountdown@gmail.com. Now, tomorrow, I think is the kickoff. We'll ask them of this wonderful new event that they've started. 5 wonderful individuals and 5 wonderful women, and it's called Seize the House. And the House, of course, is the House of Representatives. It's a candidate summit, and tomorrow is the first one at 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and they'll tell us the details when we come back with Miss Williamson and Miss Halper. We're going to play, because it is Black History Month, I try to get as much great music. Paul Robeson last week. Here we have Nina Simone, Ain't Got Nobody, and we'll be right back with Katie and Marianne.
Ain't got no home, ain't got no shoes, ain't got no money, ain't got no class, ain't got no skirts, ain't got no sweaters, ain't got no perfume, ain't got no love, ain't got no faith. I ain't got no culture, ain't got no mother, ain't got no father, ain't got no brother, ain't got no children, ain't got no aunts, ain't got no uncles, ain't got no love, ain't got no mind. I ain't got no country, ain't got no schooling, ain't got no friends, ain't got no nothing, ain't got no water, ain't got no air, ain't got no smoke, ain't got no ticket, ain't got no water, ain't got no love.
Okay, that was Nina Simone. Ain't got.
Whoa.
Yes, thank you. You know, I'm a little slow today, all right? Because I'm nervous. I got you 2 heavyweight talents, and Marianne Williamson was my candidate for president in 2020, best-selling author, and Katie Halper, comedian, fellow comedian, and a podcaster, very popular. Also, she has a podcast called Useful Idiots that she does with Matt Taibbi.
Right now, Aaron Mate, because Matt Taibbi is on writing sabbatical. But yes, Matt and I started it. He'll be back, and right now it's with Aaron Mate. Yeah.
And you, Marianne, have a podcast that is on all the time as well. And so tomorrow, Wednesday at 7 o'clock, you have Seize the House, a candidate summit. Can you, Marianne, tell us, give us the details on it, and what made you come up with this idea? The 2 of you can tell me that. Was it a group thing, or what happened here?
Well, first of all, I think that I can't let the moment go by without making some kind of comment about that profound performance by Nina Simone. I mean, I thought I was very aware of Nina Simone's music, but that was really stunning. And not only was it such a stunning performance, and not only is it such stunning music, but it's sort of the soundtrack, I think, for me, of the effort that Seize the House represents. When I ran for president, when I ended my campaign, I said that I would continue to do everything that I could do to support the issues that I talked about during the campaign. And I admit, a particular soft spot in my heart for people who actually make the effort to run for office, because I know how hard it is. So we all know the scoop. We all know about how the oligarchy rules. We all know that one of the places where it is most embedded is within the electoral system, because so much money is poured into the system that it's very difficult for non-corporate candidates to get a hearing. Even within the Democratic Party, the Chuck Schumers of the world, the head of the DCC, et cetera, will ask, can you self-fund? So this is how it works. People who already have money are more likely to make it into Congress, to make it into to any position of power at this point, more likely to have money of their own and more likely to be supported by corporations who know that they will get what they want from them. So this right there is why the people, the will of the people, is so underserved in Congress. And when I see people who are standing, who not only are standing for, let's say, the cancellation of the college loan debt, but are standing for it because they know what it is to be crushed by the college loan debt. When I see people who are running, not only for Medicare for all, but whose own mother, let's say, died because of insurance. When I see people who themselves are struggling, under the very conditions that they would be seeking to change in Congress, I really feel for these people. So I'm good friends with Howie Klein, who I really depend on for all kinds of advice and counsel. And we started endorsing people last year who are non-corporate backed congressional candidates. And then I said to my fantastic girlfriends, such as Katie Halper, Crystal Ball, Brianna Joy Gray, Juliana Forlano, and of course, as Katie can tell you, we've done a couple of these before. We did a live stream in support of Julian Assange. We did a live stream in support of Stephen Donziger. You know, this sort of really cool girl power panel. I know we've enjoyed it, and I think that we've gotten a lot of response to it. So this is a way that all of us are introducing people to an array of non-corporate backed congressional candidates. My hope, of course, is that it will garner them some support. My hope, of course, is that people will have their credit cards out, will go to the Act Blue page, will do what they can, $5, $10, whatever's right for people, all the way up to people who have more money. But at the very least, even if they don't give money, learn about these candidates and support them in whatever way they can.
Wow, I wish I had met you. We're doing this 10 years ago when I ran against Chuck Schumer in 2010. He knocked me off the ballot. I had to go on as a third-party candidate. Or when I ran for mayor and I ran for gut 3 times, that's it. I hit the trifecta and I'm never running again. I know how difficult it is. Katie, you want to add to what Marianne just said?
Yeah, I just think it's a really exciting and important opportunity for people who are not corporate to, introduce themselves to people. There's some people out there who are kind of celebrities who have run for office, who have won their elections. There's a lot of attention that members of the squad get. And then we need to make sure that there are more people out there, that their stories are told. People really connect with issues, of course, but for better or for worse, people also really connect with personalities and stories. And so it's important, I think, for people to see these people kind of not live in person, but live on video and in conversation. So people can get excited about the people who are fighting so hard for these issues, and also see that these things are politically popular, they're politically viable, despite what media and political elites tell us. These are things that have mass support, and that's why we're highlighting people who support these things with mass support.
Before I ask another question, just where do people access this? At your Twitter account, Marianne?
SeizeTheHouse.com. SeizeTheHouse.com.
That's easy to remember, SeizeTheHouse.com. This is the first, because you can only put so many candidates on Wednesday night. And I know there are a lot of candidates out there. And this is basically before the primaries, which you said is the most important thing going on in this country right now, is the control of the House. And the primaries are extremely important. Hopefully there'll be someone other than the hacks like James Clyburn that are out there running. So tell us how often this will be. What's your plan?
Well, who knows? I mean, I've been putting up this information about these people. Last year, we were able to give them support. Something that you just mentioned is true. There are far more candidates even than we have mentioned there. These have been definitely vetted. There are people who stand for what many of us think of as the progressive agenda: Medicare for all, free college, cancellation of the college loan debt, Green New Deal, a more righteous American foreign policy, and so forth. There are many more than that, but it's like Katie and I have talked a little bit in the last few days. If you keep just adding every possible fantastic progressive candidate, then the money that comes in, somebody might give, let's say, a $50 donation. That's a big donation. On the other hand, if you have too many candidates and each person just gets so little. So I hope that what tomorrow will do is we're introducing people to 16 candidates, maybe 18 candidates by now,
19,
that
I
we think of.
How
I
many?
thought it was
I thought it was
18, I
19, but
think. Is it
18
19?
candidates tomorrow night alone.
I keep asking Lauren to give me numbers, so let me see. I'm sitting
a
here.
good number.
Maybe if she can hear me, she can
Under-
do it. I
yeah.
keep asking.
right.
I don't know.
Well, when you
Um,
find out, tell me, how did you find these candidates?
Well, once again, Howie Klein is so up. You can say, there are 435 congressional districts, and you say to Howie, pick this, California 40. Could you please give me the number, Lauren? It's 18. It's 18
18.
people.
Okay.
Yes. You could say to Howie Klein, you could mention any state and any district, and he'll tell you who's there. So when he starts talking about who's running as a progressive, who is there now, who is the corporatist Democrat who has been there, let's say, for 10 years, 20 years, people who have never stood for any progressive, for anything progressive, who are actually running in districts where the Democrat has a really good shot, where the incumbent, represents this corporatist state, and so forth. And then, of course, there are various things that I find very moving. If you go to the seizethehouse.com, you can see the video about each person. And some of these people are just so moving. There's one woman in Texas who's on the seizethehouse.com a site, very moving woman to me. She's not only a Navy veteran herself, but she tells a story about how when she was a little girl and she had asthma so bad, but her mother could not afford an inhaler. So her mother, when she would have these massive asthma attacks, her mother would take her over to the fire station where they could get her some help. Neil Walia, who I will be interviewing tomorrow night in Colorado. He's worked in John Hickenlooper's office when Hickenlooper was the governor of Colorado. Neil worked on such issues as housing and homelessness. Then he worked in Washington for the National Governors Association. He has a master's degree. He has done all the things that you're supposed to do, theoretically, in order to participate in the American dream. He is successful at what he does, and yet he himself, like so many millions of people like him, are shackled by college loan debt. He and his wife have not been able to buy a house. He and his wife are wondering whether or not they should have a child based on the economic and environmental circumstances. So something is very, very wrong in this country, that so many of the people, particularly young people who have such talent, such skill, who have done everything right, who have gotten an education, have served their country and cannot get access. They cannot get into the club. They continue to be shackled by economic and social circumstances that should not be obstructing the path of any American, much less those who have worked so hard to be part of the game.
Very well said. Katie, are you optimistic this year of maintaining the House just by the Democrats and possibly by a larger number of progressive Democrats? Or are you just doing third parties or both?
Oh, this is all people who are running within the party.
Okay.
But if I may say that, these are not people who are running within the party because they're rah-rah Democratic Party.
At all, yeah.
They're these are not naive people or unsophisticated people about the issues of the duopoly at all. These are people who recognize, as many of us do, that at least at this moment, the institutional resistance, the unholy alliance between both Democrats and Republicans, has been forged, making it very difficult for someone who is not running as one of those within one of those parties to get anywhere. And I know that from my own experience. I in retrospect, would now say naively ran as an independent in 2014 when I myself ran for Congress in California. I ran on principle because of all the problems with the duopoly that so many of us articulate. I did not realize the obstructions that exist, the fortitude of the obstructions that exist. So I don't think any of us should make any assumptions about these people, just the fact that they're running as Democrats.
Right.
They're running
Well,
as
I
Democrats.
ran as a Democrat 3 times. Okay.
Yeah.
3 times I ran. And I understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some Democrats in the House that I like. Do you think, Katie, that any of these candidates that you're going to have on are going to be endorsed by the party leadership, i.e., Chuck Schumer?
Maybe after they see our stream, they're going to be inspired.
Yeah, they're gonna.
They're gonna have to-
Right.
we did, we
Well,
did do
you know-
a stream for Stephen Donziger, and the next morning he was allowed to serve. The
I
rest of
know
the
that.
session.
We knew he did it.
Yeah.
I
And then
know
did
that.
one
I
on
saw
Sunday
that
night for
show. The
Stephen
next day,
Donziger.
Steve's going to be joining us in a minute to ask questions as well to this wonderful panel that we have here. He's going to be. Usually, I have Roger Waters as my co-host, but he's not. But Steve got out this morning, and you and Katie, when you did that one, that was a huge. The 5 of you, I think there were 5 people to say, not the same ones that are on tomorrow as part of the question. People ask questions, but part of the panel, I guess, part of the forum. But you also did one on Julian Assange that was
Right.
really mammoth. You know, I do hour
you
shows.
were part
This
of,
one
yeah.
lasted like 8 hours. And you had everybody on, every person on, from Stella Morris to all the way
Ro
to
Khanna.
Roger Waters. All right.
Roger, yeah.
And a lot of people, Glenn Greenwald. It was a great experience. Both
He
of
actually
those.
didn't join. He
Huh?
did. Yes, for Assange. Yes. Sorry, ignore me. Yeah. Glenn Greenwald.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. Both of them. And
Yeah.
so let me before we bring Steve out here.
And so this is like the third of that series, basically. of
This
our
is the
combined
third of
Girl
work.
power.
that series. I see of
Yeah.
all of you
Yeah.
together.
The girl
All right.
power series.
Girl power.
What
Yeah.
now? Let me ask you what will be some of the questions that you might ask these candidates?
Oh, well, each of us is interviewing 4 people. Some of us
Yeah.
5. I think you're interviewing 5. So
Yeah.
everybody will decide. Katie will ask what she wants to ask. I'll ask what I want to ask. Bree will ask what she wants to ask. Juliana will ask what she wants to ask.
Right, we're all independent. Will Julian Assange come up, and will Steve Donziger come up?
Who knows?
I don't know, but I can tell you this though: all of the people who are running are already where we are about
Okay.
issues like Donziger and Assange. That's it. The reason I wanted to do this, the reason I'm endorsing these people, the reason I'm doing what I can, the reason I've asked my friends to help me, and I think I can speak for all of them, you, Katie, et cetera, tell me if I'm wrong. We just want people to get a sense that these are human beings out there. We have this sort of this stereotype of political candidates that sometimes I think is very unfair. I have a lot of respect for these people. In terms of the issues they stand for, they all stand for the progressive things that we stand for. What I want people to see is what incredible human beings they are and why they deserve support and why they are people who don't just stand for these issues, but could be counted on to actually make a difference on these issues if we help them get to Washington.
All right, what we're going to do now, and bring him in, we're going to take, I want people to know, this is not part of your program, but I want people to know there is a petition out there. Forgot to bring this up in the beginning, for Leonard Peltier, who's been in prison for 46 years. So we're going to play a little bit of music, 30, 40 seconds of music, and the Peltier stuff is on there. We'll be right back, and Steve will be with us as well. It's amazing that he has been there for 46 years. I know, Steve, by the way, I'm Randy Critical Live on the Fly here on WBAI. and
looks like
on
this.
Progressive Radio Network,
Yes, the
talking
5
with
letters
Marion
across the top.
Williamson
I
and
don't see this.
talking with Katie Halper. They have Seize the House tomorrow at
Yes,
7
got-
o'clock. Go to
So I
seizethehouse.com
got
and you can watch
3
this
letters.
wonderful,
out of
the
place.
beginning of,
They were
we
in the
hope,
right place.
a
They were
lot
green.
of candidate forums. It's called the Candidate Summit tomorrow. And Steve is on the phone. That's not unusual for Steve to be on the phone. Usually he's on the phone when I'm talking to him. He's on another phone talking to somebody else. And Steve is, if he's plugged in now. Hello, Steve Donziger.
This is
I don't
kind of
know.
He
funny.
is, he's,
By the
to be
way, while
fair,
we're
he's a
waiting
busy
for
guy.
Stephen
He is
to
definitely
notice us,
defending his freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's 7 to 10 p.m. East Coast time, because a lot
Yes,
of our
right,
people are
right.
Californians.
Right.
We're on from 4 to 7.
Yeah.
4
And you can also
o'clock.
find
This
them
is
on
funny.
all of
Somebody
our YouTube
needs
channels.
to text Stephen and tell him
Yeah,
to.
would you do it? I guess I will have to.
Yeah, I don't
I'll
have my
do it.
phone.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
All right,
you guys.
you do
I'll
it. Call him
All right.
up. Call him up and tell him to look at
Put him
us.
on blast. Put
Yeah.
him on blast.
There he is.
Hey,
I think you got-
Stephen.
Oh,
Hi,
There he
Stephen.
is. Let's see.
We got him.
Let's see.
I don't
Stephen
know. I don't think he
Donziger.
realizes we're there.
You better call him up, Katie. It's
I mean,
okay. This is all
yeah.
spontaneous.
I'll mute
Tell
myself
him to
while I
look at
call
the
him.
screen. So, Marianne, give us some of the other questions that issues that. Come on,
Okay.
Steve. Steve, we're waiting for you.
Coming.
Oh, there he is. Steve is he on the phone? Is he there?
Stephen, you're triggering our abandonment panic.
All right. I don't think he can hear us.
All right.
All right, there he is. Steve, can you hear us?
10 minutes.
Hello. Hi, Steve. How are you? He can't hear us. Is that it? You can hear him.
This is
All
the
right,
halfway
so-
house. Hold on.
All right. He'll come back. I'm sorry. This happens, folks, sometimes. That's if I was taping this, you wouldn't
Oh,
see that.
good thing he
Hang
was
on.
wearing pants. You
Okay.
missed I'm glad he
All right.
Well,
wearing
yeah, I
pants.
know. I was going to say it could have been
Some of the
worse.
issues-
You guys should
let me
remove
ask
his
you
screen.
about this
Whoever's
finger
running this,
rattling
you
with
should
Russia
remove him.
right now. Is that something that concerns you a lot?
What did you ask? I'm sorry, Randy.
The current crisis with NATO and Russia. I mean, this is such a dangerous game that's being played right now. How do you feel about it?
Who are you asking, Katie
You.
or Marianne?
Both of you. I'll go you first.
I'll let
Marianne.
Katie go first. I'm not sure we're going to see it exactly the same.
Yeah,
Let
we
Katie
may-
go
yeah.
first.
Okay, sure. Well, I mean, I think that we saw that first Russia's invasion was going to be imminent, then it was within a certain window. We saw Ned Price make that statement about how Russia was going to maybe possibly have crisis actors. Matt Lee from the AP did an amazing job actually asking Ned Price to provide evidence for his claims. I don't know if you talked about this on your show, Randy, but it was a pretty stunning exchange where Ned Price just claimed things were happening or going to happen. Matt Lee asked for the evidence of it, and he just kept citing the intelligence that they'd released, and the intelligence that they had released were just claims that they had made. So I'm skeptical. I mean, I don't think you have to be a fan of Vladimir Putin to be skeptical. I think that there's a lot of drum beating, saber rattling, and I think what's really scary is how we're sending all these arms to Ukraine and the Azov battalion. Aaron Mate and I actually this week, we covered on Monday, we do something for Useful Idiots called Monday Mornings. And we showed how Richard Engel unknowingly, hopefully, had a report where he was in Ukraine and he showed some guys like with a gun on the ground, and he had an Azov battalion insignia on him. And the Azov battalion is basically a neo-Nazi battalion that John Conyers was able to pass some kind of bill making it illegal for us to send them weapons and to fund them. But we're doing that right now. So I think that it's a scary situation.
Well, it is, and it's current right now. Also, I mean, we can't afford to go to war. Everyone's got nuclear weapons here. Are we playing a dangerous game, Marianne? And by the way, Steve is here.
Hi, Stephen. Yes, obviously, it's a very dangerous, very serious situation. But the cyber attacks against Ukraine are clearly real, and they're clearly stepping up. You don't have to be a fan of Putin. You don't have to be a fan of the military-industrial complex to acknowledge that the issue of Russia invading Ukraine, should it occur, brings up very, very serious issues about lines that would be drawn not just by the United States. This is an international situation. This involves NATO. This involves other European countries. So I think that the decision of exactly how to react to it should not be a decision that is made just by the United States anyway. But I think that the consensus that is arrived at by our European allies and by others in the international community will hopefully reflect an emergence of real wisdom on this issue. But it's very real. This is not just American military industrial bullshit. And I'm the first person to acknowledge that military industrial complex bullshit does exist. But on this particular issue, there is also a very a bigger question of lines that should be drawn, if they should be drawn, if they are drawn, how should they be drawn? And I think very serious sanctions actually make sense.
All right. Well, you got two different
We can
points of
debate it
view. I
tomorrow,
like that.
yeah.
Maybe you should too run for a congressional seat and I'll moderate.
Yeah,
it.
right.
No, we just text late at night and, go over it that way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look who's here. Steve Donziger.
And by the way, I don't think that if I just made a complete, I don't think that anything.
Steve, turn your other.
I think, yes.
You're logged in twice. Turn the other one off, Steve. All right.
Just to complete with that, because I think these issues are so important. I don't think that what Katie just said and what I just said were oppositional viewpoints.
I don't either.
It's a complicated situation, and we both brought up, there are juxtaposing truths here. It's gnarly and complicated, and that's okay that we point out different aspects of the situation.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's get back to
I
Steve
am anti.
Donziger.
I don't support sanctions, but
Yes. Well,
What would you do about, if I may, what would you do in this situation if Russia invades Ukraine? What would you do, Katie?
well, I don't think it will. But I don't think I would. I don't think I would impose sanctions.
All right. Well,
So-
that's a good question to ask
If I were Biden,
the
yeah.
candidates tomorrow night what they think about the situation, because it really is a front burner issue right now. Steve Donziger, we were just talking about you. They're having a big forum. I know you'll be watching it, Steve. And do you have any questions? First of all, say hello to everybody.
Repeat.
You have to turn one of
Steve,
those
do you
off.
have headphones?
Where's that coming from?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
Oh,
you have
no,
it
no,
open
no,
on your
no, I
cell
know, I
phone
know. Hold on.
or a different window.
I know,
Yeah, you're
he's
right.
got-
It's probably two windows. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this
There
will
we
be
go.
edited
this is
out, so
live?
don't worry about it.
Oh no, it's
Hey.
not live. Okay, yeah.
All right, Steve. It
All right.
is live.
Yeah,
Go
that's-
ahead.
It's fine now.
Go ahead, Steve.
Anyway, great to see y'all. Marianne and Katie.
It's so great to see you in your apartment,
Yes,
I have
back
to
at your
say.
house. Yeah.
Been batshit crazy what I've been through the last few days. I don't know, it's just unbelievable. But anyway, I'm so indebted, and I love you guys for the support and calling my family. And I'm so happy to be back home. I got home on Valentine's Day evening. We cooked dinner. Anyway, I'm home. I'm still not free. They put the ankle bracelet back on,
Oh wow.
and
Oh,
I have 2 months and another week of this situation. But I got a great spirit, and I'm optimistic, and I can't wait to get through this. And we're working hard and doing what we need to do to build our forces. So it's great to see you. I want to congratulate y'all for organizing this event tomorrow night. I can't wait. It's exciting. And I'm
thanks,
I'm gonna
Stephen.
promote it. God, that's exactly what's needed, is to really use these independent platforms to, do the end run around the corporate media and really be able to speak truth to power and build up the brave individuals who are, throwing their hat in the ring to run for office. So I love what you're doing, Marianne and Katie, and I don't know, is Brianna doing it? I know
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like the mod squad of power
yeah,
women.
girl
Like-
boss,
You know?
family.
Yeah.
Badass.
I mean, when I was in
Badass girl.
prison, they did a big event for me, a live stream event, and like voila, like the very next day they let me out. So,
We
Also,
really
it happened
thought
with
that
the
at the
stream
time.
on Sunday. On Sunday, I
know.
streamed. I mean, on Sunday I streamed with Paul Passimino and Ali McCracken-Gerard about Stephen's case, because Stephen was then in this halfway house that he was held in, and then the next day you're released.
I know.
So there you go.
And
Boom.
I actually, I'm not joking. Like I actually believe that energy force has a ton to do making stuff actually happen. So
I do too.
I I love you guys, man. Thank
Mhm.
You know, Steve, but when I had you on, you went back into the halfway house the next day.
you.
I think my
Different kinds of
force
energy.
is very.
You
better
don't
not
have that
do.
girl superpower
Energy
thing going that
Right,
we
yeah.
do.
directions, my
Don't-
friend.
All right,
Testosterone sent you
I'm not
back
going
in,
to do
yeah.
the one-on-one anymore at WBAI. What, Steve? What are the issues that you want to be brought up tomorrow when they are talking to 18 candidates running for Congress?
Wow. I didn't expect that question. I would say I would say, what would you do differently to carry out a progressive agenda than what Joe Biden has done or failed to do? Like, let's start distinguishing what a real progressive agenda is from what the mainstream Democratic Party is actually doing.
You got it. That's it.
And as Marianne has pointed out, and I'm inspired by her and much of what she says about politics these days, we don't have two parties. We have one party. Both are dominated by corporate interests. Until we get a non-corporate, labor-based, progressive, broad coalition party that is not called the Democrats or the Republicans, we're not going to really make it on so many issues. So I would start by really drawing that distinction. People were so anxious to get rid of Donald Trump. It's like they would have taken anybody.
Damn, Katie, we need Stephen and drag.
I know, seriously. Stephanie.
We'll put you on the panel next time.
Yeah, he'd make a great candidate, Steve. He's a great
Oh,
speaker.
You'd be a great interviewer too here
Yes.
on the
Yeah.
panel.
Thank you.
Because everything he just said was exactly what people
I
should
know.
be asked.
Yeah, we should just read it out loud.
Steve, I thought you would say that a serious examination of the criminal justice system. You've been through the hoop here many times over the last 7 years, 8 years, dealing with these people. That is a foremost issue. We do have 3 million people in prison in this country, and very few candidates at all are talking about it. And it's no longer on the front burner in the White House or in Congress. Is that something, Katie, that you plan to bring up tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think Steve's story, what's so important, one of the many things that's so important about it is that it's a story that's about so many things and shows how interconnected these issues are. So you have the criminal justice system, you have issues of corporate power, you have issues of fossil fuel industries, and you see how these corrupt entities, whether it's the Justice Department and Chevron, or the judges, the courts, they all work together and to defend power and the status quo, and really like death and destruction and the killing of innocent people and the poisoning of innocent people. And they sabotage the people who are fighting back, whether that's Steve Donziger or the Ecuadorians who are just fighting for their lives. I mean, something that I think we forget is that they're being poisoned still as we speak. And Steve has done a really good job of putting his story in that larger context. I mean, Steve is someone who we see his story. He's high profile. It's really wonderful that Steve uses his voice and has dedicated his career to this. And then he's like someone we hear about. And then all the people who are in Ecuador whose story barely gets any attention. And Steve helps put a spotlight on that. But it really does speak to almost like, this word is so overused, but an intersectional monstrosity that has to be dismantled on lots of different levels.
SeizeTheHouse.com tomorrow at 7:00, folks. SeizeTheHouse.com. And of course, I'm concerned about the criminal justice system. My father did 10 years in prison before I was born. I know what that did to our family growing up, because it never left him. And it does leave an indelible mark on your soul. Just the time that you've been in, Steve, I'm sure it's something that you will never forget.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I'll give you a quick story. When I was at the halfway house, I was kind of keeping to myself, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. It was Kafkaesque. And unlike when I was in 45 days in Danbury, I wasn't really talking to anybody. And I was sitting around one day, and I had my phone. They let you keep your phone in a halfway house. So this man came up to me, I'd never met him. He says, "Hey, do you mind helping me set up my cell phone?" And I said, no, I'm more than happy to help you. I said, did you just get here? He said, yeah, I got here 2 days ago. I said, how long were you in prison for? And he said, 31 years.
31 years.
And I said, how old are you? He said, 59. So he was in prison from 28 to 59.
Yeah.
His offense was a drug distribution offense that happened at the height of the war on drugs in the 90s, when like our society was so off the rails with like everyone thought like drug offenders were like, you know, predators and the worst type of animal, basically. And this man, this gentleman, he was a gentleman, okay, had never had a cell phone.
Never had a cell
You know, and I'm like, you know what it is? It's like, what is a political prisoner? Like, I believe I'm a corporate political prisoner now. You know what
How
Chevron
long
is.
will he, Stephen,
I'm
how
sorry.
long will he be in the halfway house now? Do you know?
Like about a year, you know? I mean, but this is the thing. The fundamental problem, and I know we want to get on another topic. In
No,
America,
this is an important topic. We know
with
that.
the criminal justice system, is not that there aren't people who commit common crimes who deserve to be punished. There are, okay? It's the length of the sentences. I mean, no country does this but the United States. And, you know, my theory is if an appropriate sentence is, say, 3 years or 5 years, and someone's serving 30 years, year 5 to year 30, that person is a political prisoner.
I agree with you entirely.
That extra years, decades,
Yeah.
is a function of politics. It's a
That's
function
right.
of elected officials trying to look tough on crime for political reasons. And the bulk of the people in our prison system, even those who commit common crimes, are political prisoners, in my view, because their sentences are insanely long. At cost to us as taxpayers, and it costs to them in terms of the complete destruction of life.
Of their lives. You
And
know,
their family
Stephen,
that
one
they
of the
leave
things that
behind.
you had mentioned was that you had been to prisons many times before as a lawyer, but this took you into a whole new place of visceral understanding because you were actually there. And I look forward when this particular drama of you and Chevron is behind you. I hope you will not only do the same kind of stalwart advocacy that you have done for people in Ecuador, the farmers in Ecuador, at the effect of Chevron's criminality, but I sure hope you will also be a major voice in the ways that you just expressed, speaking as you do from that kind of visceral knowledge of the violence of the system. And I know so many millions of people agree with you, and I look forward to
Thank
the
you. That's
important
very-
part that you will play.
You know,
Thank you.
if you don't mind, I want to stick on this criminal justice system because we're going to have you back on. We're going to push this a lot. All right. You know, my godfather was William Kunstler, and I got to play this little speech by him that he made about the criminal justice system, particularly when it comes to cases like Steve and Assange. They're exactly the people Bill was talking about. This is from Disturbing the Universe by his daughters, and this is right after the Chicago 7 trial. We could just
And that's the terrible myth of organized society, that everything that's done through the established system is legal, and that word has a powerful psychological impact. It makes people believe that there is an order to life and an order to a system, and that a person that goes through this order and is convicted has gotten all that is due him, and therefore society can turn its conscience off and look to other things and other times. And that's the terrible thing about these past trials, is that they have this aura of legitimacy, this aura of legality. I suspect that better men than the world has known, and more of them, have gone to their death through a legal system than through all the illegalities in the history of man. 6 million people in Europe during the Third Reich, legal. Sacco Vanzetti, quite legal. The Haymarket defendants, legal. The hundreds of rape trials throughout the South, where black men were condemned to death, all legal. Jesus, legal. Socrates, legal. And that is the kaleidoscopic nature of what we live through here and in other places. Because all tyrants learn that it is far better to do this thing through some semblance of legality than to do it without that pretense.
All right, who wants?
Oh my God.
Go ahead, Marion, and then
Oh, that was
Katie, and
just
then you.
so brilliant. And I'd never seen that piece. You know, I told you when we met, Randy, that my father was like a cross between William Kunstler and Zorba the Greek. So, you know, I was already a big fan of William Kunstler, but that was one of the most amazing pieces I've ever seen.
Thank you, Kelly, for putting that up. Katie, your thoughts about it?
It's hard to follow that.
Well, Steve definitely falls into the category. The fact that he was looking at your trial and Julian Assange and all these others, Linda Peltier, who are all in prison. When you look at that, is he talking about you, Steve?
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. I mean, I was framed, denied a jury, had my rights trampled on. 9 international jurors have condemned my trial as a farce. I mean, it's respected jurors, 5 from the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. What happened to me is exactly what Bill was talking about in that clip.
Yeah.
You know, and they call it legal, it's court. You know, it's interesting, the psychological impact that he's talking about, the word legal. It really is a key tool to create pacification of critical thinking in our society. Like when you run it through the legal system, people are much less likely to critique the result and much more likely to accept the result, even when it is farce. And that is why Chevron is so clever in how it insinuates itself into these spaces in the legal system, takes control of them, and then controls the result, which in my case is a criminal conviction in a private prosecution that they did themselves, but they did it in the name of the US government. That is, it's legal. But of course, it's, you know, my view, it's not legal. It's actually a violation of the law, but it appears legal. And I think that's what Bill's talking about. I mean, it's very powerful. And I will say that as a society, we need to get educated about this kind of stuff, how so many of these cases are designed to appear normal and legal and run of the mill. And what they really are is, you know, political, governmental, or corporate attacks on people who challenge power. So that really resonated with me. Wow, I need to get that from you.
I'm going to send you all a copy of that.
Yeah. And the Nina Simone, please, because both of those.
I will send those to you immediately. I know you have to leave in a minute here, Marion. Can you, any other thoughts about it's seizethehouse.com tomorrow night, Wednesday at 7 p.m. And there will be, that's Eastern time, 4 p.m. in California and 6 p.m. in Chicago. You want to, I know one of the issues that you've always been involved with is homelessness. And that is something that I was on the subway the other day. I've never seen so many people sleeping on the subway.
We have 500,000 people in this country who are unhoused. It's very important for us to see all this in international perspective. We have the highest poverty rate of any advanced democracy. We have the highest incarceration rate of any advanced democracy. You know, this issue of prisons, when I was in college, we had 300,000 people incarcerated in the United States. Today, it's 2.3 million. That's also one of the reasons why it's important to remember that the president could declassify marijuana from a Schedule I drug today, just like he could declare a national medical emergency and expand Medicare to everyone today, just like he could erase the college loan debt today. There is so much that could be done, even on the part of the president, even without congressional partnership in so doing. When it comes to homelessness, We have 2 million children in any given year who at some point or another are living in a situation of homelessness. We have 1 in 4 Americans who cannot afford to fulfill the prescriptions that their doctors are giving them in order to treat the illness they have. I think people should also see that, by the way, in terms of its application to the COVID crisis. One of the pre-existing conditions that is the worst if someone does contract the COVID virus is diabetes. And the fact that insulin is so expensive in the United States has created a vulnerability on the part of people with diabetes here in this country that is not experienced by people in other advanced democracies where they are sane in terms of prescription drug, particularly insulin costs. So Katie mentioned before, while it's overused, as she pointed out, it's also significant, the idea of intersectionality. You really can't at a certain point separate homelessness, mental health issues, incarceration, poverty, healthcare, and so forth. These are all the tentacles, the children, the spawn of a deeply corrupt system. And this system will not change. It is a status quo that will not disrupt itself. The only way it will be disrupted is if we, the people, step in. And you cannot avoid the truth, which is if you're not willing to get in there and try to elect different people. You know, the young people say to me all the time, Marianne, how do we influence people in Congress? At this point, with some of these people who have been there for decades, it is too late to even think in terms of influencing them. It is time to think in terms of replacing them. And that is what we're trying to do. And that's what we need to do. And that's what seizethehouse.com is all about.
Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree. I would add also something that another part of that I think is anti-imperialism and the military-industrial complex, which is something Marianne talks about a lot. I'm very excited about it. I think we see a difference when we have progressive members of the House. I mean, there are things that I would have liked to have seen the squad have done more on certain things. There are also examples when they've done the great things. The more people we have who are progressive, the easier it will be to get things done. I think that, you know, even with the case of Stephen, we've seen some members of Congress sign letters in support of him and his case and speaking out about that. And we need to see a lot more of that. But we do see some
Kudos
of that.
to Jim McGovern.
Yeah, Jim McGovern. He's been at the forefront of it, right? And then Chuy Garcia, Rashida Tlaib. Those have been the most vocal ones, I believe. But also, I know Cori Bush, AOC, Jamal Bowman, they did sign something. I may be leaving other people off. But,
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way,
I'm against saying, I just want to say one thing, Marianne, you and I can talk about this another time. But I think I'm going to come out as anti-sanctions.
All right.
Okay, let me just say one thing to that, though.
Yeah.
There are sanctions and there are sanctions. When you talk about sanctions in Venezuela, when you talk about the maximum sanctions in Iran,
Right.
you're talking about sanctions that are actually affecting the people, and I'm totally with you on that.
No.
I think that the sanctions against Russian oligarchs, I don't have a problem with, but I see it as sanctions as a general issue. I certainly understand how they are applied many times by the United States as modes of violence. This is just the issue, specifically the context of Russia and the Ukraine.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, you get the last word here, and then I'm going to play a tune, "The Bar" by Roger Waters that features you in it, Steve. So you got 1 minute to wrap up. Katie Halper, Marianne Williamson, don't go yet. You got to watch this. And Steve, give us your last minute Andy Rooney routine.
Well, you know, I don't know what to say. I mean, first of all, I think the event tomorrow night that Marianne, Katie, and others are hosting is really important. People need to tune in.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, until we start building an independent movement, political, that actually participates in electoral politics, we're not going to be able to implement these policies. I mean, I watched Bernie Sanders. I love the guy, but like, look what he's done. And like, we still can't get basic stuff passed because of the anti-democratic structure of our political system. You know, so I think, you know, what you guys are organizing tomorrow night is super important. And I think it's the beginning of something big, or bigger than what's been built already along these lines, which is an independent movement that can actually carry out the will of the majority in this country, which, you know, both parties, I think, are consistently ignoring, both the Republicans and the Democrats. So tune in tomorrow night. I'm happy to be home. You know, we're going to keep moving forward. April 25th, by the way, is the last day of my sentence. Prepare for some sort of celebration. Might be sort of a block party down here on 104th Street in the Upper West Side. Manhattan. But we believe very much in celebrating our victories, no matter how humble they may be. And we will be celebrating on April 25th. And
Okay, I look forward to eating the crepes up there and the corn on the cob. And I want to thank Marion Williamson. It's at Marion Williamson on Twitter. It's K Helps on Twitter. At
KT,
K
it's
Helps.
letter K, letter T, HALPS. KT
Okay,
helps. letter K,
KT
letter T,
Helps.
yeah.
And then it's S Donziger, at S Donziger. Here is Roger Waters talking about Steve and the whole environmental movement. This is from his, it's just a pastiche of his masterpiece work. It's really 20 minutes long. He played it at the club at St. Mark's a couple of months ago. Katie was there. And this is the bar, Roger Waters. Thank you, Kelly Lane, for doing a great job today. And
Thank you, Randy, for this.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank you so much.
Hey, you can take a look at this before you cut out as long as you can. This is Roger.
Does everybody in the bar feel shaky? Lord knows I do. I guess we all feel pretty much the same. Kind of wore out by this crazy fucking soup. The smell of napalm with the cornflakes. The chafe of killing everything that breathes. Imposing sanctions on the lady down the street. Till she takes the hint and packs her bags and leaves. Come on in here, sister, and set a spell. You're almost welcome in the bar. We may seem few, but we are many. Have you been traveling far? The girl who brought you in here is Lakota from Standing Rock, where they made their stand. So from Fort Yates, North Dakota, here's a message for the man. Would you kindly get the fuck off our land?